The ancient doorway stood open before them, tall and imposing. Jinha felt small as he stepped through it, his boots making soft crunching sounds on the dusty floor. The air inside was surprisingly fresh, some kind of ancient system was still working after 50,000 years. "Stay close," Jack said, his hand resting on his weapon. 6 security officers followed behind him, their lights cutting through the darkness ahead. Rex walked just behind Jinha, scanning everything with his devices. "The power readings are getting stronger. Whatever's in here, it's still active." The walls around them were smooth and made of a material Jinha had never seen before, not quite metal, not quite stone. And everywhere, covering almost every surface, were the strange symbols they had seen in the images. Jinha stopped suddenly, causing Harin to bump into him. "What is it?" she asked. Jinha pointed at the wall. "Look at the symbols. They single quotes read ... changing." Everyone stopped to look. The markings on the wall were indeed shifting slightly, like tiny lights moving under the surface. "They're responding to our presence," Harin said, her eyes wide with wonder. She ran her scanner over the wall. "There's a low-level energy field throughout this entire structure. It's almost like it knows we're here." "The whole place is waking up?" Rex added. "We've detected power increases since we first opened the door. It's like it was sleeping, waiting for someone to find it." They continued deeper into the facility, following a long corridor that sloped gently downward. The architecture was strange, both alien and somehow familiar at the same time. The geometric patterns reminded Jinha of ancient human temples, but with a precision that spoke of advanced knowledge. After walking for about 20 minutes, they reached a vast circular room. In the center stood the device they had seen in the hologram ZEUS. Up close, it was even more impressive. A tall column of crystal-like material rose from floor to ceiling, surrounded by rings of an unknown metal. The whole structure pulsed with a soft blue light that seemed to beat like a heart. "Amazing," Jinha whispered as they entered the room. The pulsing light grew stronger. The symbols on the walls began to glow, and the metal rings around the central column started to turn slowly. "It's definitely reacting to us," Harin said, checking the readings on her scanner. "The energy signature is similar to the barrier, but much more complex." Jinha walked closer to the central column, drawn to it almost without thinking. As he got nearer, he felt a strange sensation, like something was touching his mind. "Does anyone else feel that?" he asked. The others looked confused, except for Harin, who nodded slowly. "Like something's trying to talk to us?" Before Jinha could answer, the light from the central column grew much brighter. A beam shot out, scanning each of them from head to toe. Then, to everyone's shock, a voice spoke, not out loud, but directly into their minds. "Human genetic pattern confirmed. Access granted to Celestial Defense Network. Awaiting authorization for ZEUS protocol activation." Jinha looked at the others in shock. "It recognizes us as human," he said. "But how? This facility is thousands of years older than our species." "Unless it's not," Harin said slowly. "Unless humanity is much older than we thought." The voice in their minds spoke again. "Partial historical records available. Query parameters?" Jinha took a deep breath. "Who built this facility?" "The progenitors constructed this defense outpost 53,427 local orbital cycles ago as protection against the Arcturus collective expansion." The name sent a shock through the group. The Arcturus collective, the same ones who had put the barrier around Earth. Who were the progenitors? Jinha asked. The progenitors were the first human civilization. They seeded 317 worlds across this galactic sector before the Great Collapse. Earth was designated as the primary restoration site. Jinha felt dizzy with what this meant. Humans weren't just from Earth, they had once been a vast civilization. Among the stars? Earth wasn't their beginning, but their refuge. And ZEUS? He asked. What is it? ZEUS is the primary defense protocol. When activated, it neutralizes all Arcturus technology within the solar system and reestablishes connection to the Celestial Defense Network. Harin stepped forward. Can it remove the barrier around Earth? Affirmative. The quarantine field is standard Arcturus containment technology. ZEUS protocol will dissolve it and deploy countermeasures to prevent reestablishment. Jinha could hardly believe what he was hearing. After centuries of imprisonment, the key to humanity's freedom had been buried beneath their feet all along. Why? Didn't the progenitors activate it when the barrier appeared? Jack asked. The facility entered dormancy during the Great Collapse. Activation requires conscious human authorization with specific genetic markers. You are the first qualified humans to discover this facility since dormancy began. Jinha looked at the others. This was bigger than they had imagined. Not only could they free Earth, but they might be reconnecting with a vast network of human-seeded worlds, a heritage they never knew they had. We need to tell the Council about this, Jack said. This is too big for us to decide alone. Jinha nodded, though part of him wanted to activate ZEUS immediately. Freedom was literally at their fingertips. Before we go, he said, turning back. To the presence in the chamber, one more question. What happened to the progenitors? Why did they fall? The answer came after a pause. As if the system was reluctant to share this information, the Arcturus collective feared human potential. They engineered the Great Collapse through biological warfare and technological sabotage. They have contained emerging human civilizations 17 times since. Earth is the 18th containment. The room fell silent as they absorbed this. The barrier wasn't a quarantine, it was the latest in a long history of deliberate suppression. They're afraid of us, Harin said quietly. Yes, Jinha agreed. And soon they'll remember why. The journey back to the surface was quiet, each person lost in their own thoughts. The implications of what they had discovered were enormous. Humans were not just an isolated species on a single planet, they were the remnants of a once great civilization that had been deliberately brought low. As they reached the surface and emerged from the ancient doorway, Jinha looked up at the barrier shimmering in the black sky above them. For 300 years it had been a prison wall. Now he saw it differently, as proof of how much the Arcturus collective feared what humanity might become. What do you think the Council will decide? Harin asked as they boarded the transport back to the main base. Jinha considered the question. They'll be divided? Some will want to activate ZEUS immediately. Others will be afraid of the consequences. And, you? She asked. What do you think we should do? Jinha looked out the window at the stars beyond the barrier stars that humans had once traveled to. Stars that might still have human colonies waiting to reconnect with Earth. I think we've been prisoners long enough, he said. I think it's time we remembered who we really are. As the transport sped across the lunar surface, Jinha thought about the voice from the ancient facility. The progenitors had left ZEUS as a key to humanity's prison and, perhaps, as a way to reclaim their heritage among the stars. The question now was whether modern humans were ready to use it and face whatever consequences came with freedom. Dr. Jinha stood at the large window of Lunar Base Alpha, looking up at the strange, shimmering wall that surrounded Earth and the Moon. The barrier glowed with soft blue light against the blackness of space. It was beautiful in a way, like a giant soap bubble with Earth floating inside. But Jinha only saw a prison. Still staring at it? Harin asked as she walked up beside him. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and her eyes looked tired from long hours of work. Jinha nodded without looking away from the barrier. 300 years we've been trapped inside this thing. Harin sighed. As the head of the Barrier Analysis Division, she had spent more time studying the alien technology than anyone else alive. Sometimes I think you believe if you stare at it long enough, it might just disappear. I'm just thinking about what's beyond it, Jinha said quietly. All those stars we can't reach, all those worlds we can't explore. The barrier had appeared without warning 3 centuries ago. Humanity had been preparing its first real journey to another star system. The ship Odyssey was ready for its test flight when suddenly, in a single day, a massive energy field enclosed the entire Earth-Moon system. All attempts to break through it had failed. All messages sent through it went unanswered. Only one communication had ever come through the barrier, A simple message that appeared on every screen on Earth. Humanity is quarantined until deemed safe for galactic inclusion. The aliens who created the barrier called themselves the Arcturus Collective. No one had ever seen them. No one knew why they had decided to lock humanity away from the rest of the galaxy. Director Quan wants to see us, Harin said, breaking Jinho's thoughts. He says it's urgent. Jinho finally turned away from the window. Did he say what it's about? No, but he looked excited. I haven't seen him like that in years. They walked through the busy hallways of the lunar base. In the centuries since the quarantine began, humans had been forced to look inward instead of outward. They had built 12 large cities on the moon. They had started changing Mars to make it more like Earth. They had mined the asteroid belt for resources. Humanity had made the best of its cosmic prison, but it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Director Quan was waiting for them in the main laboratory. With him were Chief Engineer Rex and Security Commander Jack Morrison. Quan's normally serious face looked almost happy. We found something, Quan said as soon as they entered. Something big. He pressed a button, and a 3D image appeared in the center of the room. It showed what looked like a large building or facility buried deep under the moon's surface. 3 days ago, a mining team hit something strange, 2 kilometers below Tycho Crater, Quan explained. It's not something we built? Tests show it's about 50,000 years old. Jinho stared at the image in shock. That's impossible. Humans weren't even on the moon 50,000 years ago. We weren't even a civilization then. Exactly, Rex said, moving his hands to make the image bigger. The technology inside is like nothing we've ever seen, and there are strange symbols everywhere that don't match any human language. Except for this, Quan said. He zoomed in on one wall covered in strange markings. Among them was a symbol Jinho recognized immediately, a lightning bolt. Zeus? Jinho whispered. The Greek god of thunder. Not just Zeus, Harin said, pointing to other symbols. Look, that's the symbol for Odin from Norse myths. And that one represents Ra, the Egyptian sun god. And there's Shiva from Hindu tradition. That's impossible, Jack said, shaking his head. These symbols are from human cultures that didn't exist until tens of thousands of years after this place was built. Unless, Jinho said slowly, his mind racing with possibilities, those gods weren't just myths. Unless they were based on something real, something that was here long before us. Quan nodded. That's what we're thinking too, and there's more. He changed the image to show a massive room at the center of the buried facility. Inside was a strange device, a tall structure of metal and crystal that seemed to glow with a faint light. We think it's a weapon, Quan said, or a tool. Or maybe both. We're calling it ZEUS. Jinho looked at the image carefully. Can it break the barrier? He asked, asking the question that mattered most. Quan looked at Rex, who nodded slowly. We think so. The energy readings from this device are similar to the barrier itself, but much stronger, if we can turn it on. We can free humanity, Jinho finished, feeling a surge of hope for the first time in years. Or destroy ourselves, Jack warned. We have no idea what this technology does. Maybe the Arcturus Collective put the barrier up to protect the galaxy from whatever is down there. Jinho looked at each person in the room. Or they put it up to keep us from finding it, to keep us from becoming a threat to them. The room went quiet as everyone thought about what this could mean. The Council will need to approve any attempt to activate it, Quan finally said. Jinho, as our best expert on ancient artifacts, I want you to lead the research team. Harin, your knowledge of the barrier will be essential. Rex will handle the engineering work, and Jack will be in charge of security. Jinho nodded, his mind already filling with questions and possibilities. After 3 centuries of imprisonment, humanity might finally have found the key to its freedom. When do we start? He asked. Quan's answer was simple. Now. 2 hours later, Jinho sat in a transport vehicle heading down to the buried facility. He reviewed the information they had gathered so far on his tablet. The structure was much larger than they first thought, extending for kilometers in all directions under the moon's surface. Whoever had built it had technology far beyond what humans had achieved, even after centuries of development. Nervous? Harun asked from the seat beside him. Jinha thought about it. Curious, he decided, and hopeful. For the first time since the barrier appeared, we might have a real chance. The transport slowed as they reached the dig site. Through the window, Jinha could see dozens of researchers and security personnel moving around a massive hole in the lunar surface. Powerful lights shone down, illuminating an ancient doorway made of a strange metal that hadn't rusted despite its age. Welcome to Project Olympus, Rex said, meeting them as they stepped out of the transport. The engineer looked tired but excited. You're just in time for the first real exploration inside. Jinha felt his heart beat faster. Whatever they found inside that ancient structure could change everything for humanity. It could mean freedom after centuries of confinement, or it could mean something far more. Dangerous. As they approached the massive doorway, Jinha couldn't help but wonder, who had built this place? Why had they left symbols of human gods? And, most importantly, what would happen when they awakened ZEUS? The main meeting hall of Lunar Base Alpha was packed. Jinha had never seen the council chamber so full. Representatives from Earth, the Moon, Mars, and the asteroid belt colonies sat around the large circular table. Some were physically present, while others appeared as life-sized holograms. Their images slightly blue and transparent. Director Quan stood at the center, explaining what they had discovered beneath the lunar surface. As he spoke, 3D images of the ancient facility and the ZEUS device floated above the table. Jinha watched the faces of the council members. Some looked amazed, others looked scared, a few seemed angry. This discovery was going to change everything, and not everyone liked change. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, said Councillor Park, the representative from Mars. He was a short man with a permanent frown. You're telling us that humans once ruled the stars, that we're some kind of fallen empire? The evidence is clear, Harun stepped forward, pointing to the data displays. The facility's records match strange artifacts we've found throughout the solar system over the years. And the genetic recognition is undeniable. The system knows what humans are because it was built by humans. Even if this is true, said Councillor Lee from Earth, a tall woman with gray hair, turning on an ancient weapon could be dangerous. What if it damages the barrier in a way that harms our atmosphere? What if it makes the Arcturus Collective attack us? Jinha had heard enough. He stepped to the center of the room. Councillors, with respect, we're missing the point, he said. For 300 years we've been prisoners. We've told ourselves that we're doing well, that we're thriving despite our limitations. But we've been living in a cage designed to keep us from discovering exactly what we found. He gestured to the image of ZEUS floating above the table. The Arcturus Collective didn't put us behind the barrier for our safety or theirs. They imprisoned us because they fear what humans can become. They've done it 17 times before. They've systematically hunted down and contained human civilizations across the galaxy. The room went quiet as his words sank in. This isn't just about freedom, Jinha continued. It's about survival. How long before they decide that containing us isn't enough? How long before they decide to eliminate the human problem completely? Councillor Kim, the oldest member of the council, and representative of the lunar colonies, spoke up. What exactly would activating this ZEUS protocol do? Rex stepped forward to answer. Based on our analysis, it would create an energy pulse that neutralizes the barrier technology. It would also turn on a network of similar facilities across the solar system, creating a defensive shield that would prevent the Arcturus Collective from simply putting up another barrier. And beyond that, Kim pressed. You mentioned a celestial defense network. Jinha exchanged glances with Harun before answering. The facility indicated that ZEUS would re-establish contact with other human-seeded worlds. There could be human civilizations out there, possibly also contained, that we could connect with. Or we could be opening the door to a war we can't win, Councillor Park argued. If the Arcturus Collective defeated the progenitors at the height of their power, what chance do we have? We have surprise, Jack Morrison said, speaking for the first time. They don't know about ZEUS. They think their containment is perfect. And we have 300 years of human innovation and adaptation that they haven't been watching. The debate continued for hours. Jinha watched as the council divided along predictable lines. Those who had built power within the confined system feared change. Those who had always pushed against the limitations saw opportunity. Finally, Counselor Kim raised her hand for silence. I have lived my entire life under the barrier, as did my parents and grandparents before me, she said. Her voice was soft but strong. I've seen humanity accomplish amazing things despite our prison. But I've also seen the mental toll of knowing we are caged, the physical limitations that have led to resource wars and suffering. She looked around the chamber, her old eyes sharp with determination. If what you've discovered is true, if we are the descendants of a star-traveling civilization that was deliberately brought low, then our imprisonment is not just an inconvenience. It is an existential threat. The Arcturus Collective has shown its intentions clearly through its actions. They fear human potential so much that they have repeatedly acted to contain it. She stood up, her small body straight with purpose. I move that we authorize the activation of ZEUS. Not just for our freedom, but for the survival and restoration of humanity throughout the stars. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Authorization was granted. As the council members left, Counselor Kim approached Jinha. Dr. Jinha, she said quietly, I am trusting you with humanity's future. Whatever happens when you activate ZEUS, remember this, we were meant for more than this cage. Whether we are the last humans or just one branch of many, we deserve our place among the stars, Jinha nodded solemnly. We won't let you down, Counselor. As he gathered with Harin, Rex, and Jack to prepare for their return to the facility, Jinha felt the weight of history on his shoulders. After 3 centuries of imprisonment, humanity was about to reclaim its heritage and face whatever consequences came with it. Are we ready for this? Harin asked as they boarded the transport that would take them back to the ancient facility. Jinha looked at each of his companions. Rex was checking his equipment, his face focused and determined. Jack was briefing his security team, his movements precise and confident. Harin watched him with questioning eyes, waiting for his answer. I don't know if we're ready, Jinha admitted. But I know we have to try. The Arcturus Collective has kept us in this cage for 300 years. They've done the same to other human worlds. If we don't act now, we might never get another chance. The transport hummed to life and began its journey across the lunar surface. Through the window, Jinha could see the Earth hanging in the black sky, beautiful and blue, surrounded by the shimmering barrier that had been its prison for so long. Soon, that barrier would be gone. Soon, humanity would take its first steps back to the stars. And soon, the Arcturus Collective would learn that their greatest fear had come true. Humans were remembering who they really were. As the transport sped toward the ancient facility, Jinha thought about the name they had given. The device, ZEUS, after the king of the gods, the wielder of lightning. In ancient myths, ZEUS had freed his siblings from imprisonment and led them to victory against the Titans. Now, a new ZEUS would free humanity from its prison. And whatever came next, freedom, war, reunion with lost colonies, one thing was certain. The human story among the stars was about to begin again. The ancient facility seemed different this time. As Jinha led the team through the long corridor toward the central chamber, he noticed the walls were glowing brighter. The strange symbols moved more quickly, almost as if they were excited. The power levels have doubled since our last visit, Rex said, checking his scanner. It's like the whole place is waking up. Jack and his security team moved cautiously ahead, weapons ready. Stay alert, he warned. We don't know what else might activate when we turn on ZEUS. Harin walked beside Jinha, her face serious. Are you sure about this? She asked quietly. Once we do this, there's no going back, Jinha nodded. 300 years is long enough to be prisoners. It's time we took back our freedom and our heritage. They reached the central chamber where ZEUS waited. The massive device pulsed with blue light, the crystal column at its center beating like a heart. The metal rings around it were spinning slowly, as if warming up for what was to come. "It knows why we're here?" Jinha said, as if in response. The voice they had heard before spoke directly into their minds. Human authorization team detected. ZEUS protocol awaiting activation command. Jinha stepped forward. "Before we activate ZEUS, we need more information." "What exactly will happen when the protocol is initiated?" The voice answered, "ZEUS protocol will execute in 3 phases. Phase 1. Quantum disruption pulse will neutralize the Arcturus barrier technology. Phase 2. Activation of all dormant progenitor defense systems throughout the solar system. Phase 3. Reestablishment of quantum communication with all surviving human-seeded worlds." "Will the Arcturus Collective be able to detect the activation?" Harin asked. "Affirmative. ZEUS protocol cannot be concealed. Arcturus monitoring systems will detect the energy signature immediately." Jinha exchanged glances with the others. This confirmed what they had suspected: activating ZEUS would not go unnoticed. It would be a declaration to the galaxy that humanity was breaking free. "How long will it take for the barrier to come down?" Rex asked. "Barrier dissolution will begin immediately upon activation. Complete removal will require approximately 47 minutes. "And how long before the Arcturus Collective could respond?" Jack asked the critical question. There was a pause before the answer came. "Based on historical data, Arcturus response time to containment breach is between 6 and 12 Earth hours." Jinha felt a chill. They would have less than half a day before. The aliens who had imprisoned them for 3 centuries might arrive to restore the containment or worse. "We need to be ready for their response," Jack said. "I'll contact Earth Defense Command as soon as the barrier starts coming down." Jinha nodded, then turned back to the presence in the chamber. "One final question. What defenses will we have once ZEUS is activated?" "The Celestial Defense Network includes 27 weapons platforms throughout the solar system. Additionally, technical data for progenitor defensive technology will be transmitted to your information systems. Warning: current human technology may be insufficient to fully implement all progenitor designs within the expected response window." In other words, Jinha thought, "We'll have some defenses, but not enough time to build everything we might need before the Arcturus Collective arrives." "It's still our best chance," he said aloud. "We can't remain prisoners forever, waiting for them to decide our fate." He looked at each member of the team. "This is humanity's moment. Are we ready?" Harin nodded first. "Ready." "Ready?" Rex agreed. Jack takes weapon one last time. "Ready?" Jinha turned back to the pulsing crystal column. "Initiate ZEUS protocol." For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the blue light at the center of the crystal column began to intensify, growing brighter and brighter until it was painful to look at directly. The metal rings around it spun faster, creating a high-pitched hum that filled the chamber. "Energy buildup at 25%, the voice informed them. 50%, 75%, 100%. ZEUS protocol initiating." Suddenly, a beam of brilliant white light shot upward from the crystal column, passing through the ceiling as if it weren't there. The entire facility began to vibrate. Phase 1 commencing. Quantum disruption pulse deploying. On his tablet, Rex pulled up a live feed from a camera on the lunar surface. They could see the beam of light shooting up from the ground straight toward the barrier that had imprisoned Earth for 3 centuries. When the beam hit the barrier, it spread out like lightning, creating a web of white energy that raced across the entire surface of the dome. "It's working," Harin whispered. Her eyes wide with wonder, the barrier began to change color, shifting from blue to purple to a deep red. Then, slowly, it started to become transparent in places, like ice melting under the sun. "Barrier dissolution at 5%, the voice reported. "Estimated time to complete removal, 44 minutes. Jinha felt a surge of emotion, hope, fear, excitement all mixed together. After 300 years, humanity was breaking free of its cage. Phase 2 initiating, activating dormant defense systems. The tablet in Rex's hands suddenly lit up with dozens of new signals from all over the solar system: Mars, Venus, the asteroid belt, even the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. "These are all progenitor facilities," Rex said in amazement. "They've been hidden throughout the solar system all this time." On the screen, they could see small structures emerging from the surfaces of planets and moons, unfolding like flowers, opening to the sun. Some were clearly weapon platforms, while others appeared to be communication arrays or shield generators. "The progenitors left us a defensive network," Jinha realized. "They knew someday we might need to protect ourselves." "Barrier dissolution at 15%, the voice updated them. "Phase 3 initiating. Establishing quantum communication with human-seeded worlds." A new holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a map of the galaxy. Small points of light began to appear, first a few, then dozens, then hundreds. "What are those?" Jack asked. "Those are human worlds," Harin said, her voice filled with awe. "All the colonies the progenitors established before the Great Collapse. Quantum communication established with 42 human-seeded worlds," the voice reported. "Warning. 275 worlds are not responding. Presumed lost or contained." Jinha stared at the map. 42 worlds where humans still existed. 42 branches of humanity that had been separated from Earth for thousands of years. "Are they receiving our signal?" he asked. "Can we communicate?" "With them, affirmative. Quantum communication channels are now open. Data exchange beginning." The tablet in Rex's hand suddenly began to fill with incoming messages, text, images, even video from other human worlds. Some looked similar to Earth humans, while others showed subtle differences from thousands of years of separate evolution. "They're all sending messages at once," Rex said, scrolling through the flood of data. "Some of them have been free all. This time, others were contained like us but broke free. They've been trying to find each other to find us." Jinha felt overwhelmed. In a single day, humanity had gone from being prisoners in their own solar system to part of a vast, scattered family of worlds. "Barrier dissolution at 30%, the voice reported. "Warning, Arcturus monitoring stations have detected the ZEUS activation. Estimated response time, 8.4 hours. The moment of celebration was cut short by this reminder. They had freed themselves. But the Arcturus Collective was now aware of it. The aliens who had imprisoned humanity for 3 centuries would be coming, and they would not be happy. "We need to prepare," Jack said, already contacting Earth Defense Command. "We have less than 9 hours before they might arrive." Jinha nodded, but his eyes were still on the galactic map showing all the human worlds. "We're not alone anymore," he said. "Whatever comes next, we face it together with our brothers and sisters among the stars." As the barrier continued to dissolve above them, Jinha knew that humanity had just taken its first step back to its rightful place in the galaxy. The road ahead would be dangerous, but for the first time in 3 centuries, it was a road without walls. ZEUS had awakened, and with it, humanity's true destiny. The news spread across Earth and its colonies like wildfire. The barrier was coming down. After 300 years of imprisonment, humanity was breaking free. Jinha stood in the main control center of Lunar Base Alpha, watching the massive screens that showed the barrier dissolving. It was now 70% gone, revealing the true stars beyond for the first time in centuries. People everywhere were looking up at the sky, many crying with joy as they saw the universe opening up to them again. 6 hours until possible Arcturus response, Harin said, checking the countdown clock they had set up. "How are the preparations going?" Jinha turned to the other screen showing activity throughout the solar system. Earth's defense fleet ships that had never been used outside the barrier was mobilizing. The ancient progenitor defense platforms were fully active now, their weapons charged and ready. On Mars, Venus, and the larger moons, emergency shelters were being prepared in case of attack. "As well as can be expected," Jinha replied. "We've had 3 centuries to prepare for war, but never thought we'd actually fight one." Rex rushed into the control center, his face flushed with excitement. "You need to see this," he said. Connecting his tablet to the main display system, the largest screen changed to show a transmission from one of the human-seeded worlds, a planet called New Athena. A woman with slightly larger eyes than Earth. Humans, but otherwise similar appearance, spoke urgently. Earth, this is Admiral Lyra of the New Athenian Defense Force. We have received your quantum signal and confirmed ZEUS activation. Be advised, our long-range sensors detect Arcturus vessels. Already moving toward your system. Estimated arrival, 5 hours. We are dispatching support ships, but cannot reach you before they arrive. Sending tactical data now. Jinha felt his stomach drop. 5 hours? The facility said we'd have at least 6. They must have had ships closer than we thought, Jack said grimly. Or their response time has improved since the data in the ZEUS system was recorded. Harun was already reviewing the tactical data sent by New Athena. They're sending information on Arcturus ship designs, weapons capabilities, and known weaknesses. This is invaluable. What about the other human worlds? Jinha asked. Are any of them close enough to help? Rex checked the quantum communications. 3 other systems are sending ships, but none will arrive in less than 12 hours. We're on our own for the first wave. Director Kwan entered the control center, followed by several members of the Earth Unified Council. The barrier is 85% dissolved, he reported. We're receiving the first direct communications from outside the solar system in 300 years, not just from human worlds, but from other species as well. Other species? Jinha asked in surprise. Kwan nodded. Apparently, not everyone in the galaxy agrees with the Arcturus Collective's containment policy. Some have been working against them for centuries. Potential allies, Jack said thoughtfully. We'll need them. A new alert sounded, and one of the technicians called out, "Incoming transmission from the progenitor facility." The voice they had come to know spoke through the control center's speakers. Warning, Arcturus battle group detected entering outer solar system. 5 capital ships with escort vessels. Current trajectory indicates Earth as primary target. Estimated. Arrival, 4.7 hours. The control center erupted in activity. Jack immediately began coordinating with Earth Defense Command. Harad and Rex focused on integrating the tactical data from New Athena with their defense systems. Jinha turned to Kwan and the council members. We need to address the people. They need to know what's coming. Councillor Kim stepped forward. I will speak to them. They should hear it from the council. Tell them the truth, Jinha urged. All of it, about our past, about the progenitors, about the other human worlds. They deserve to know who we really are before we fight for our future. Kim nodded. I will, and what will you do, Dr. Jinha? Jinha looked at the screens showing the dissolving barrier and the approaching Arcturus ships. I'm going back to the facility. There might be more we can learn from ZEUS before they arrive. An hour later, Jinha stood once again in the central chamber of the ancient facility. The ZEUS device was still active, its crystal column pulsing, with energy as it maintained the quantum communication network with the other human worlds. The barrier is completely gone, Harun reported, checking her tablet. For the first time in 3 centuries, Earth is free. Not yet, Jinha said quietly. Not until we deal with the Arcturus Collective? He approached the crystal column. We need more information about our enemy. Why do they fear humans so much? What happened during the Great Collapse? The voice responded immediately. The Arcturus Collective fears human adaptability and innovation. Unlike most species, humans evolve culturally and technologically at rates that exceed biological evolution. The progenitors advanced from primitive technology to interstellar travel in less than 10,000 years, a pace unprecedented in galactic history. And that scared them? Rex asked. The Arcturus believe in controlled, predictable development. They see rapid advancement as dangerous and destabilizing. When the progenitors refused to slow their expansion and development, the collective classified humanity as a threat to galactic stability. Jinha frowned. So they attacked us because we were learning too quickly, because we were exploring too much. Correct. The Arcturus Collective values order above all else. Human unpredictability and innovation represented chaos in their worldview. Haren shook her head in disbelief. They imprisoned us for being too creative? In essence, yes. The human capacity to adapt, to solve problems in unexpected ways, to imagine possibilities beyond current reality, these traits made humanity dangerous in their assessment. Jinha felt a strange mix of pride and anger. Humanity's greatest strengths were exactly what had made them targets. Can Zeus tell us more about the Arcturus ships that are coming? Jack asked, focusing on the immediate threat. Weaknesses? Vulnerabilities? The voice paused before answering. Arcturus technology has likely evolved since the last recorded data. However, their fundamental approach remains consistent. Their ships rely on highly ordered energy patterns. They are powerful but predictable. Predictable, Jinha repeated, an idea forming. And they fear unpredictability. Correct. Arcturus tactical systems excel against conventional forces, but struggle against irregular, unpredictable attack patterns. Jinha turned to the others, excitement building. That's it. That's how we fight them. Not with brute force, but with the very thing they fear most about us, our unpredictability. What are you suggesting? Jack asked. A battle plan they can't anticipate. Something that goes against conventional military tactics, something human, Haran caught on quickly. We use their weakness against them. They expect us to defend Earth directly, to position our forces between them and the planet. So we do something else, Rex said, nodding. Something they won't expect. Jinha turned back to the crystal column. Zeus, can you help us develop an unconventional defense strategy based on what you know about Arcturus tactical systems? Affirmative. Analyzing human military history for relevant precedents. Integrating with current defense capabilities. A new holographic display appeared, showing the solar system and the approaching Arcturus ships. Various tactical options began to appear, each one unusual, unexpected, distinctly human in their creativity. This might actually work, Jack said, studying the display with growing interest. These approaches go against standard military doctrine, but that's exactly why they might succeed. Jinha watched as the plans took shape. In 3 hours, humanity would face the force that had imprisoned them for centuries. They were outnumbered and outgunned. By any logical assessment, they should lose, but humans had never been limited by logic alone. Send these plans to Earth? Defense Command, Jinha instructed. And to all the progenitor defense platforms, we need everyone coordinated. As Rex transmitted the battle plans, Jinha looked at the galactic map showing all the human-seeded worlds. For thousands of years, the Arcturus Collective had been containing humanity, keeping them isolated, preventing them from reaching their potential. That ended today. They imprisoned us because they feared what we might become, Jinha said quietly. It's time to show them their fears were justified. The main control room of Earth Defense Command was filled with tension. On the large screens, 5 massive Arcturus ships approached Earth, their strange designs unlike anything humans had built. They looked like giant snowflakes made of metal. Perfectly symmetrical and beautiful in a cold way, Admiral Chun, the head of Earth's defense forces, studied the battle plan Jinha and Zeus had created. Her face showed doubt. This goes against every military strategy I've ever learned, she said. Jinha nodded. That's exactly the point. The Arcturus expect us to fight in certain ways. They've studied our history, our tactics. They're prepared for what they think we'll do. So we do what they don't expect, Jack added. We fight like humans, unpredictable, creative, willing to take risks that seem crazy. Xion looked at the plan again, then at the approaching enemy ships. They had less than an hour before the Arcturus would be in firing range. Very well, she finally said. We'll do it your way. God help us all. She turned to her communications officer. Send the orders to all ships and defense platforms. Operation Thunderbolt is a go. Jinha felt his heart racing as the Earth fleet began to move. Instead of forming a defensive line between Earth and the incoming Arcturus ships, the human vessels scattered in all directions. Some headed toward Mars, others moved toward Venus, a few even appeared to flee toward the outer planets. To any observer, especially the Arcturus, it would look like panic. Like the Earth forces were running away in fear. "They're taking the bait," Haran said, watching the enemy ships on the tactical display. "The Arcturus fleet is splitting up to chase our scattered ships. This was the first part of the plan. The Arcturus, seeing the human fleet breaking formation, would assume they were dealing with an uncoordinated, frightened enemy. They would divide their forces to capture or destroy the fleeing ships." "Phase 2, Jinha said as the Arcturus fleet spread out across the inner solar system. At his words, the ancient progenitor defense platforms that had been dormant for 50,000 years suddenly activated their main weapons. But they didn't fire at the Arcturus ships. Instead, they fired at specific points in space between the enemy vessels." "What are they doing?" Admiral Chen asked, confused. Rex smiled. "Creating chaos." The energy beams from the defense platforms hit empty space and seemed to tear holes in reality itself. Swirling vortexes formed where the beams had struck. "Quantum disruption fields," Haran explained. "The progenitors discovered that certain energy patterns can temporarily disrupt the laws of physics in small areas. Inside those fields, things become unpredictable." On the screens, they could see the Arcturus ships nearest to the disruption fields beginning to struggle. Their perfect symmetrical forms seemed to waver. Their movements became erratic. "Their technology relies on perfect order and predictability," Jinha said. "The quantum disruption fields create areas where the laws of physics become temporarily chaotic. Their systems can't handle it." "Phase 3, Jack called out. The Earth ships that had appeared to flee suddenly turned around. They accelerated to full speed, each one heading directly toward an Arcturus vessel that was struggling with the effects of the disruption fields. "They're on a collision course," Admiral Chun exclaimed. "Not quite," Rex said. "Watch." Just before they would have crashed into the enemy ships, the Earth vessels fired special missiles not at the Arcturus ships but into the disruption fields near them. The missiles entered the chaotic zones and immediately began to behave in impossible ways. Some split into multiple copies. Others seemed to teleport short distances. All of them became unpredictable, the Arcturus ships. Their systems, already struggling with the chaos of the disruption fields, couldn't track or intercept the wildly moving missiles. One by one, the weapons found their targets. "Direct hits on?" "3 Arcturus vessels," reported a tactical officer. 2 more taking heavy damage. Jinha watched in amazement as the plan worked even better than they had hoped. The Arcturus, faced with weapons and tactics that defied prediction, couldn't adapt fast enough. "They're retreating," someone shouted. On the main screen, the remaining Arcturus ships were pulling back, moving away from Earth as quickly as they could. A cheer went up in the control room. They had done it. They had faced the force that had imprisoned humanity for centuries and won, but Jinha's relief was short-lived. A new alert sounded, and the tactical display changed to show a massive new contact entering the solar system. "What is that?" Admiral Chun demanded. The answer came from ZEUS, its voice now patched directly into Earth's communication systems. "Arcturus command carrier detected." This vessel class was responsible for implementing the original containment field. The new ship dwarfed the others they had faced. It was at least 10 times larger than the biggest Arcturus vessel they had already defeated. "Can we fight that thing?" Jack asked quietly. Jinha looked at the tactical data. The command carrier was powerful enough to generate a new barrier around Earth. If it succeeded, they would be prisoners again, perhaps for another 300 years or forever. "We have to try," he said. "All our ships, all the defense platforms, everything we have." But even as he spoke, he knew it might not be enough. The command carrier was simply too powerful. Then, suddenly, new contacts appeared on the tactical display, dozens of them, approaching from multiple directions. "More Arcturus ships?" Chun asked, her voice tight with worry. Haran checked the readings, then broke into a wide smile. "No, they're human ships. The reinforcements from the other colonies have arrived." Jinha stared at the display in amazement. Ships of designs they had never seen before were entering the solar system from all directions. The quantum communications showed their origins: New Athena, Prometheus, Terra Nova, and other human-seeded worlds. "This is Admiral Lyra of the New Athenian Defense Force," came a voice over the communications system. "Earth, we have arrived to stand with you. The Arcturus have kept humanity divided for too long. Today we fight together." More messages followed, as ships from other human worlds announced their arrival. Each fleet had different technology, different weapons, all of them evolved separately over thousands of years. "The ultimate human advantage," Jinha said quietly. "Diversity." The Arcturus command carrier, faced with not one but many different human fleets, each with their own unpredictable tactics and technologies, hesitated, its approach slowed. "They don't know what to do," Harin realized. "Their models can't predict the combined actions of so many different human civilizations." Jinha turned to Admiral Chun. "This is our chance. We need to coordinate with the other human fleets for a joint attack." Chun nodded and opened a channel to all the human vessels. "This is Admiral Chun of Earth Defense Command. We welcome our brothers and sisters from the stars. Together we can end the Arcturus threat once and for all." As the combined human fleets prepared for battle, Jinha felt a surge of emotion. After centuries of separation, humanity was reunited. Different branches of the same family evolved in different ways, but still human at their core. The Arcturus had feared human potential so much that they had imprisoned Earth and hunted down human colonies across the galaxy. They had tried to keep humanity divided and contained, but they had failed. And now they would face not just Earth, but humanity united in all its creative, unpredictable, unstoppable glory. "All fleets," Admiral Chun commanded, "execute attack. Pattern Thunderbolt Prime, for Earth, for humanity, for freedom." The battle for humanity's future had begun. The Arcturus command carrier was like nothing humanity had ever faced. It dwarfed even the largest human ships, its perfect snowflake design gleaming against the blackness of space. As the combined human fleets approached, it began to glow with energy. "It's charging its main weapon," Harin reported, watching the readings from her station in Earth Defense Command. "Energy levels are off the charts." Jinha studied the tactical display showing the positions of all the human ships. They came from a dozen different worlds, each fleet with its own design and technology. Some were sleek and fast. Others were heavily armored. A few seemed to phase in and out of normal space as they moved. "The new Athenian ships are taking point," Admiral Chun noted. "Their quantum shields are the strongest." On the main screen, they watched as the ships from New Athena formed a front line, their shields creating a rippling barrier of energy behind them. The other human fleets organized into attack formations. "All ships report ready," Jack announced. "Operation Thunderbolt Prime is a go." The human attack began not with a direct assault, but with something unexpected. The ships from a world called Prometheus launched what looked like small probes toward the command carrier. The probes didn't attack, they simply surrounded the massive Arcturus vessel floating at a safe distance. "What are those?" Admiral Chun asked. "Quantum resonators," explained the Prometheus fleet commander over the com. "They don't cause damage directly, but they create interference patterns in the Arcturus energy systems. Their weapons won't work as effectively." It was a perfect example of human ingenuity, not trying to overpower the enemy, but finding a clever way to reduce their advantage. The command carrier fired its main weapon, a massive beam of energy that should have cut through the human fleet like a knife. But as it passed through the field created by the Prometheus probes, the beam wavered and split. Much of its power dissipated. The new Athenian ship's shields absorbed the weakened blast, holding firm. "Now," Admiral Chun ordered, the Earth fleet, along with ships from Terra Nova, executed the next phase of the plan. They didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, they launched special missiles directly into the quantum disruption fields that still lingered from the earlier battle. Just as before, the missiles began to behave in impossible ways as they entered the chaotic zones. They multiplied, teleported, accelerated to impossible speeds all behaviors that the ordered Arcturus systems couldn't predict or counter. The command carrier's defenses managed to stop some of the missiles, but many got through, striking its perfect hull and leaving burning scars. "It's working," Rex shouted. "Their shields are weakening." But the Arcturus vessel was far from defeated. It began to deploy smaller ships, hundreds of them, swarming out like angry insects. "Drone ships," Harin said. "They're trying to overwhelm?" U.S. with numbers. The human fleets adjusted quickly, each using their unique capabilities. The fast ships from a world called Hyperion darted among the drones, drawing their fire and leading them into traps. The heavily armored vessels from Vulcan absorbed punishment while delivering devastating counterattacks. Earth's ships, though less advanced than some of the others, fought with determination and skill born from centuries of training and preparation. Jinha watched the battle unfold with a mixture of awe and concern. The human fleets were fighting brilliantly, but the command carrier was incredibly powerful. Despite all their efforts, it was still advancing toward Earth. "It's positioning itself to deploy a new barrier," Harin warned. "If it succeeds, Earth will be imprisoned again." Jinha turned to the communication link with the ancient facility. "ZEUS, is there anything else we can do? Any other progenitor? Weapons or systems we haven't activated?" The voice replied after a brief pause. "There is one final protocol. The Celestial Spear. It was designed as a last resort against Arcturus command vessels." "What does it do?" Jinha asked. "It creates a focused quantum disruption beam that can penetrate Arcturus shields and destabilize their core systems. However, it requires all progenitor defense platforms to channel their energy simultaneously. This will deplete their power reserves completely." In other words, Jinha thought, they would burn out all their ancient defenses for one powerful shot. If it failed, they would lose a significant advantage for future battles. "Will it work?" he asked simply. "Probability of success? 64.7%. The command carrier may have countermeasures unknown to this system." Jinha looked at Admiral Chun. The decision was technically hers to make. Chun didn't hesitate. "Do it. We can't risk being imprisoned again." Jinha nodded and gave the command. "ZEUS, activate the Celestial Spear Protocol." Throughout the solar system, the ancient progenitor defense platforms began to change. Their weapons turned away from the battle, pointing instead toward the sun. They fired simultaneously, their beams converging at a point in space near the solar surface. The sun's plasma responded, a massive solar flare erupting along the path of the combined beams. But this was no natural flare. The progenitor technology shaped and directed it, turning the sun's own energy into a weapon, a massive beam of solar plasma, contained and focused by quantum fields, shot across the solar system directly toward the Arcturus command carrier. "All human ships clear the target path," Admiral Chun ordered. The combined fleets scattered, moving away from the command carrier just as the solar beam reached it. The Arcturus vessel's shields flared brilliantly as they tried to repel the attack. For a moment, it seemed they might hold. Then, with a flash that temporarily blinded the sensors, the shields collapsed. The solar beam struck the command carrier directly. Its perfect snowflake structure began to break apart, massive sections tearing away as the quantum-enhanced plasma ate through its systems. "Direct hit," Jack shouted. "The command carrier is breaking up." On the tactical display, they watched as the massive Arcturus vessel disintegrated. Its smaller drone ships, suddenly cut off from their control center, drifted aimlessly or shut down completely. A cheer erupted in the command center. They had done it. They had defeated the force that had imprisoned Earth for 3 centuries. As the celebration continued around him, Jinha stepped away to a quieter corner. Harin followed him. "We won," she said softly. "Earth is free." Jinha nodded, but his expression remained serious. "This battle is over, but the war may just be beginning. The Arcturus Collective won't give up easily. They've been containing humanity for thousands of years. But now we're not fighting alone," Harin reminded him. "We have our brothers and sisters from the stars with us." Jinha smiled at that. She was right. After millennia of separation and centuries of imprisonment, humanity was reunited. Different branches of the same family, each with their own strengths and innovations, now standing together, Admiral Chun approached them, accompanied by Admiral Lyra from New Athena and commanders from the other human worlds. The Arcturus have retreated from the entire sector, Chun reported. At least for now, we're safe. What happens next? Jinha asked. Admiral Lyra smiled. Now, Earth rejoins the human family. There is much to share, much to learn from each other, and much to prepare for. The Arcturus will return eventually. And we'll be ready, Jinha said with determination. In the days that followed, ships from Earth ventured beyond the solar system for the first time in 300 years. The ancient quantum communication network allowed instant contact between all human worlds. Knowledge, culture, technology, all were shared freely among the reunited branches of humanity. 1 month after the battle, Jinha stood on the observation deck of a new ship, the first Earth vessel built with technology shared by their cosmic cousins. Through the viewport, he could see Earth growing smaller as they moved away, heading for New Athena on humanity's first diplomatic mission in centuries. Haran joined him at the window. Having second thoughts? She asked. Jinha shook his head. No, just thinking about how far we've come. 300 years in a cage, and now we're heading to the stars. Where we belong, she said. Jinha nodded. The Arcturus had feared human potential so much that they had tried to contain it, to lock it away. But they had failed to understand the most fundamental truth about humanity. The human spirit cannot be caged forever, like a fire that grows stronger when challenged. Humanity had emerged from its imprisonment not weakened, but strengthened. Not divided, but united. Not fearful, but determined. They had blocked Earth from the stars, so humanity had awakened ZEUS, and in doing so, they had reclaimed not just their freedom, but their destiny among the stars. As the ship accelerated toward its first jump point, Jinha smiled. The journey was just beginning.